Well, here we go. I'm here with Gary Nolt. Gary Nolt, welcome to the line.
Thank you, Joshua.
I
Appreciate being here.
really am glad to have you here. You know, usually I'm bringing people on here and I'm asking them to step up to the line. And in the background here, I can see one of our Blackline Broncos. I already asked you to step up to the line a while ago, and you and your entire team at Cassel stepped up to the line. And we had a trip to Dirt World last year, and you guys were like, we want to be a part of this. And we asked, but you literally stepped up to the line.
Yeah.
You even moved your schedule and squeezed us in and knocked it out to wrap our vehicles, to make a statement about driving your brand, which is something here at Cassel. I can read it right there on your chest.
Yeah, it's our tagline.
So I love real and authentic conversations, and I know that that's something that we've been having. I know that's who you are. And I would just love to hear a little bit. I also love history, legacy, you know, an overarching story of how are we here? What are we doing? We're sitting in this room, and on this back wall here, we have some logos that you were telling me were from like the 90s and the early 2000s. And it's like, are we in, there's a couple of buildings here. You kind of have like a ever sprawling and expanding operation, but are we in the original?
We're in the original location.
Okay.
So it's not the original building.
Okay.
So our business was birthed in 1945.
And for those who are listening, I don't know that I said your business name, which is really important. So your business is?
It's Cassel.
Okay.
And we are a vehicle graphics, design, and fleet wrap company. We are B2B. Yeah, we love all things wraps, all things fleet graphics and lettering, and from food trucks to little cars to big tractor trailers.
Well, and people, I don't know that they can see it on camera, but there's a giant tractor trailer right there out of frame that you guys are working on. So, you pretty much, you do it all.
Yeah.
When it comes to fleet graphics, anyway, you were saying that.
Correct. Yeah.
That's kind of your niche. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, and I keep getting to look at your work right behind you there, you know, which I'm kind of biased towards Blackline and our logo. And it was really cool when we came to you guys. You like have a whole team that basically listens to us talk, captures our vision, and then puts it on what I would say is one of the more costly assets that we buy as a company, and is like a rolling billboard that you're communicating who we are.
Yeah.
And so they really, like, it was up here in our heads, and you guys put it on the side of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you wrapped the entire vehicle. So
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. No, it's a fun process.
Okay.
Just like you're saying, going from that, hey, I got these thoughts in my head, and I have this brand, and I have this idea, and how do we flesh that out and get it on a whatever piece of a vehicle that you're using? And we have one of the things I believe that separates us is we hire talent. We hire young people that have an eye for that and are could work at an agency. I mean, they are agency talent, but choose to be part of our team here. So it definitely sets us out as our design.
I know a little bit about that of hiring talent, and it's interesting, you know, working in the trades and now being a part of a creative company for the trades. I know what it is when you say agency, and they could be a part of an agency, some of the people that are on our team, but I'm glad that they choose to be here.
Yeah.
Because they bring that talent to lifting the view of the skilled trades, which I think is just, I mean, it's what we're about, so I love that. And so, you know, to hear that, I think I can connect and understand what you're saying there.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Cassel, and, you know, and maybe you said this already, I don't think you did, but like, when did you start? And, you know, in a 0 to 60, you know, how did you get from there to here now? Like, what's that story in 5 minutes?
So the story of Cassel, like I was saying earlier, it birthed out in 1945, which was my wife's grandfather and grandmother's what started the business. And artist, very good, obviously a paintbrush in the 40s, and took making signs, painting furniture.
Can I stop you there? You said obviously a paintbrush,
Right.
and this is something about the trade that's interesting. We often think, well, it's obviously this, but I don't know that people listening understand what you mean when you say that. Talk about
Well,
that a little bit.
Well, we don't use paint anymore. Pretty much everything is ink on vinyl that is applied.
So back in the 40s, they would
So
have
in the
painted
40s,
everything.
would have had to been paint. It would have been you would have needed the artistic skill to be able to paint letters and graphics.
So her grandfather or great grandfather, which was it?
Grandfather.
Her grandfather would have been an artist that his canvas was the side of a truck.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Yep.
pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. And then my father-in-law, as he got older and was able to, he pretty much joined the family business when he was 17 years old, and he had also a very artistic hand and was able to paint graphics and design and do all that stuff on sides of trucks for even then in the 60s and 70s when he started. Trucks were that's what they specialized in.
Really?
Yeah, so even years ago.
So the only way that I could have ever done anything like that or worked here back then would have been like if someone wanted like a Picasso type branding thing, where you throw the paint at the truck.
Right.
I could have totally done that. But yeah.
No, I'm thankful it changed because I don't think I could have. I don't think I would have lasted very long. But yeah, so just the history of the business. Just working locally for all the new businesses and clients in the area, and then so it was a small mom and pop shop for a lot of years. I got engaged to my wife Megan in 1995. We got married in '96, and a month before the wedding, he came to me and offered me a position to come join the business, and it was growing. But he wanted to keep it family. He wasn't looking to hire employees. That wasn't what he was looking to do.
So at this point, it was just him.
It was him and his dad. Yeah. And as his dad was transitioning out is when I came into the picture.
So, and he came to you, and you're married to your wife at this time, or
We just got it was a month before the wedding.
okay? So, remember I told you we don't edit anything, so you can pass on things, but like this isn't one of the planned questions. But
Okay.
how did that feel? Your father-in-law coming to you, like what's going through your
Yeah.
mind when he's like, "Hey, will you come be a part of this with me?" Because I would think that's like that would kind of hit me.
No, that's actually a really good question. It was a weighty question. I didn't wrestle with it too long, but my first thought was, family businesses are hard.
They can be really good or they can be really bad.
And just it's like, do I really want to do that?
Yeah.
The opportunity I thought was really cool. I mean, I always was like so fascinated in the graphics, and we didn't do wraps back then in the 90s, but just the whole process was so neat and creative. And I was like, you know what? But my relationship with my in-laws are super important, and my wife. So after a couple weeks of thinking about it, praying about it, it's like, yeah, let's try it. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you talk about that process of it in the 90s there. So like, what was that process? Are we still doing paintbrush stuff, or are we now moved into something else?
Yeah, so in the 80s is when the first computer came out with a cutter, and it was very basic, just cutting a few fonts.
So was it like a
the
Commodore
options.
64 with a dot matrix vinyl printer? Like what was it? What was it?
Yeah. I don't even remember the names anymore, to be
Wow.
honest. But that's when it transitioned. The early
Okay.
80s is when it transitioned from paintbrush to a combination of you could apply just basic fonts and then hand brush the shading or outlines and stuff like that. And then by the time that later in the 80s is when the first printers came out, was more, but it wasn't ink at the time. It was more of it was a foil heat transfer type
Okay.
printers at that time. And then, but on a small scale. And it really wasn't until the later 90s is when the wraps started becoming a thing, and they started seeing these vehicles as billboards, even more so. I mean, there's always been lettering on vans and trucks and trailers for years. I mean,
Yeah.
decades. But where you could really bring the creative side and do
I haven't
color
really
changes.
noticed wraps until recently.
Okay.
Like I've always thought that it was like vinyl lettering,
Yeah.
But you're saying even in the mid 90s, you guys were doing rap type stuff?
Early
Or-
early early 2000s was our
Okay.
first one.
Okay.
But it would have been introduced into the world in the late 90s is when it first came out. But nobody, why would you do that? Why would you be
Yeah.
the first guy to do that? But yeah.
Yeah, well, some of us are stupid and we're firsts in doing things, and so you
Yeah.
know we usually end up dead, but like somebody else can come along behind us, you know,
Right.
and make it happen. So,
Yeah.
well, that's pretty cool. So then, in the 2000s, you transitioned to wraps, and
Yeah.
what part of your business, like the Bronco here in the background, is wrapped?
Yeah.
What part of your business is wraps versus vinyl? You know, I'm curious.
Well,
You're like, wow, I didn't know that I was going to be tested.
I should
here.
have pulled some data.
What are your stats,
no,
Gary?
I would say so. So a lot of people do full wraps, but we also offer packages where it's more like a 3/4 or a partial,
Okay.
or some type of lettering plus package is what we call it. Just hey, your basic lettering with some design elements just to strengthen the brand. So anything above a basic lettering, we're probably 70%. I would guess in that 60 to 70% of everything we do is more than just a basic lettering, which which would have been. I mean, that's what everything was in the 80s and 90s. And before.
So, you know, it starts out grandfather, you know, and your wife's dad.
Yep.
They're working together, and then in the mid 90s,
Yep.
you said like 95. Wow.
Yeah.
You're old.
Yeah.
So 95. I was just
Goes
thinking where
fast.
I was in 95, and I was not working for my wife's father. So there you are in the mid 90s, and now it's three of you, or it's just you and him.
For just a short period, as I was coming on, is when my wife's grandfather was retiring,
Okay.
fully retiring. He was partly retired, so as he was kind of transitioning out, is when I was transitioning in. So we had a little bit of overlap, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But
That heritage right there. That's
yeah,
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from 95 to 2000, I mean, I think it's important just to kind of give those of you who are listening a picture. We're in the original property in a building, you know, and then there's another building that's attached to this building, and then there's
Yeah.
another building that's
Yeah.
attached to this
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
And so talk with us a little bit about, so what happened from 95 to 2000 with, you know, it was you and him, and then
Yeah.
there's more people.
You mean more people? So
Yeah.
yeah, we had. Well, there was a fire in '94. The original barn had burnt down, so we were able to build back a shop, and then so basically till 2012, it was just a couple of us.
Okay.
So we did hire. 2010 was our first full-time hire, other than family.
Okay.
And that was in preparation of Dale getting towards 65 years old and retiring, and I wanted to start preparing for that. And I came to him. I said, "Hey, I'd like to bring somebody on."
So wait, that was what year?
2010.
Whoa. So up until that point, it's you and him.
Basically, it was just, you know. And my mother-in-law was the bookkeeper.
That's like 15 years.
Yeah.
You and
Yeah.
him for 15 years building this business together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And just for context for those who are listening, how many people work here now?
We have 28. Yeah.
28.
Yeah.
So you're building a foundation since the 40s. They're building a foundation of a business. 95, the first outsider comes in.
Yeah.
And then 15 years later, it's still you guys for 15 years building. Wow. So when I was an apprentice, you were lettering some of the trucks that I was driving. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then you brought you're why did you feel the need that you wanted to bring someone else in? I'm curious what happened in that time frame in those 15 years that you're like, you know what, I want to bring someone else on.
It's
Because
interesting.
to go from 2 to 28 is kind of a big deal. Like,
Yeah. Am I allowed to get spiritual on here?
dude, real and authentic. You can curse, you can
It
talk
was-
about God, it doesn't matter.
I'm probably one of the coolest moments, you know, as I look back through that transition and that season of when this was 2009. It was during the downturn. Things, I mean, we pulled back 30%, even though it was just two of us.
Right.
30% was still a lot.
Yeah.
And
And your idea was more people.
and I'm no, not at that time. I was, we're 3 years away from Dale stepping aside at 65, and now I'm in control.
Okay.
And I remember Dale was in Myrtle. They had just bought a place in Myrtle, just a place that they want to go to, kind of partly retire, be able to travel to Myrtle Beach and to hang out and do all that. And I had this moment. I'm like feeling the weight of this transition, knowing I don't have the same skill set my father-in-law has. Like he's an engineer and an artist, which is so rare. You're usually one or the other, and he's really both.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Lord, I don't know I hope you know what you're doing, because I'm not Dale, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And
Come on.
oh man, yeah, I'll just never forget, because that was the first time I heard an audible voice, and I felt his hand touch my shoulder.
Come on.
And he goes, Gary, just trust me.
Wow.
Just trust me. I have someone for you.
Wow.
And I was just like, phew. And then this weight just like lifted, and I was like, what? I'm like looking around, because I've I've been brought up a believer my whole life, but I've never had an encounter like that where it was the presence.
Wow,
and,
that's awesome.
And literally feeling his touch on my shoulder. I was blown away, and I was like, oh wow, okay.
I can understand that you would be blown away. I can get that.
So then that made it easier to go to Dale and be like, hey, I want to hire somebody. And I kind of shared that story with him, and he's like, all right, I get it. No, that's... So he kind of walked with me in that trusting of, what that looks like. And little did I know that, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to bring me a partner. He's going to bring me somebody. That it's just going to be he and I forever. Or maybe we'll have 4 or 5 employees someday.
28 employees.
And so from there, and then.
So let's we reach that point. I just want to break it up here with like a softball question for you.
Sure.
What is something, a piece of gear, a tool, something that Gary Nolt cannot live without? The apocalypse happens. You can only have one thing. Like, what is that one thing that you have to have on planet Earth that you cannot live without?
It has to be something
tangible.
tangible.
It can be whatever you want it to be.
Man.
I mean,
I'm
not gonna put rules on it. We don't put rules on the questions here on the line.
I can't live without relationship. Authentic relationship.
So here's the deal. I'm not gonna say it has to be. No, it's fine. But here's the deal.
Yeah.
You got to define for us what that means. You say that you can't live without relationship. That's the one thing that if everything else on the planet is gone, you can't live without. So what is relationship to Gary Nolt? I want to know what that is.
Yeah, it's the ability to be authentic and be in a relationship with somebody else who's also authentic, and you care about each other and you encourage each other, and
Come on.
You want what's best for each other, and have fun. I mean, somebody's like-minded in the sense of that. I get energized by that. I get energized by being around people.
Dude, that's good.
But that authentic, I like. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like,
well, usually
it doesn't have to be
not
clean.
Perfect.
Yeah, right. It doesn't have to be clean.
We call this an authentic and real podcast, but it is most definitely not perfect.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the thing that people need to realize is, our core values are honesty, excellence, and grit at Blackline. Mm-hmm. And excellence, I love that because it's not perfection. Excellence is our value. We could have picked perfection, but I believe that excellence is reaching for perfection and always striving to be excellent. But if we are demanding perfection of people, that is impossible.
Yeah.
It does not exist. And when you ask someone for something that's impossible, it is demoralizing. It breaks down relationship. It breaks down those things. But if you ask someone for excellence in what they do, then you can help them strive to be a better person than they are today, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we all should go after that. If you're not doing that in your job, if you're not looking for that, well, then you're never going to be beyond where you are today. If anything, you're going to end up going backwards, because the only way to go against the tide is to continue to push forward, you know? And so when you talk about that, I think that's really important. You know, it's probably one of the best things that you can't live without, because I think that relationship is everything, and it applies to everything. You can have relationship based on your definition, which I love, by the way. You can have relationship with clients. You can have relationship with employees.
That's great, yep.
You can, and all the way into, you can have family relationship, and different people have the authority to speak on certain things that others do not. 15 years in a family business where it's your father-in-law and you, and it's just you two.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there was some relationship building there.
Yeah.
And
Wasn't always easy.
well, it
but
usually isn't.
Yeah.
And
No.
something worth anything
Yeah.
isn't easy.
Yeah.
So, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there you are. We now know something really deep about you, Gary, that relationship is where it's at, which having known you and having related with you, that's real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and, you know, here we are in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We're having this conversation. You have a reputation. For me, a brand, which drive your brand is your slogan, your tagline, what you guys are about. And there are all these brands on the wall here behind us. For me, brand is your reputation. That's what a brand is. Yeah. And so you have a reputation, I believe, in our area, in our geographic location, because of the type of business that you are. You know, you're not doing stuff all over the country, but in our area, your reputation is that relationship-based business. And that's why since the 40s, I believe, people have been coming here. And there's some pretty big names. They're not all on the wall here, but
Right.
There's some pretty big names that you guys do work for. And you do it very, very well. You're not known for being the cheapest, but they are known for being the best. And that's really saying something. That comes based on building a brand of reputation through relationship.
Yeah.
And that's really where it's at. I mean, so let's drop some wisdom here for those that are listening.
Sure.
Because you have some of that. So talking about, you know, how now here we are, you're bringing on your first employee. So now you have 28 people here. Let's fast forward. What is the important thing in building your brand here with these 28 people? How do you, I literally had breakfast with a guy today and he goes, I want to understand how to build culture and multiply it beyond myself. And that literally is what you're doing here. How do you do it?
Yeah, very good question. So out of that relationship, bringing on people. So part of the disc profile, you know, I like to hang out with people I like. You
Yeah.
know, so in the beginning, I tend to.
That was me saying maybe he likes to hang out with me.
Right.
We're not paying him for this conversation. We're
So-
not paying you for this conversation.
Right. So I hired people I like. I hired people that I want relationship with because that matters to me.
Come on.
And I didn't just, obviously they had to have the talent,
Yeah.
you know, be able to do the job. But at the end of the day, it's like I want to surround myself with people who I like. And they tend to be the same. They also want to hang out with people. So how you multiply,
When you say they
how you
tend to be the same.
multiply, well, that's part of the multiplication.
Okay. I'll shut up and I'll let you talk. Drop your wisdom.
Of the culture. I tell everyone, the culture is not one person. It never is. Each person here owns the culture that's here. They are contributing one way or another, whether they like it or not. And if it's a good culture, I celebrate them.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for them in stepping up and owning their piece.
Yeah.
That is theirs. So we tend to, it is. We love working together. We love hanging out. I mean,
So you gave me a tour when I first came in while they were setting up.
Yeah.
And he's walking me through the building, which and we can talk about this a little bit later, but like well-oiled machine would be the statement that comes to mind. But you're walking me through the different teams, and they're scattered throughout. But the interesting thing was there was no real area where there was any one person where they weren't working with other people,
Right.
and they're working together. And every single room that I walked into, smiles and happy. I don't even know that some of the job sites that I've been on that I can say that I walk into an area and it's all smiles and happy, and it's like it was infectious actually. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It makes coming to work fun.
Well, and I mean, there's no reason that coming to work, no matter what you do, that's the interesting thing about relationship and culture, like you speak of. It really doesn't matter. And listen, this is not an insult to garbage men. This is just for effect and example. It doesn't matter what you do. If you are hauling trash, if the relationship and the culture is there, work can be enjoyable. You know, when I started as an apprentice, I did work on wastewater treatment plants. That's a very nice way to say that I worked at a place where they process your poop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, but I loved my job. And I loved my job because of the people that I worked with and who they were. And so that's what you're talking about there in that Cassel culture as we talk about that.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that. Like, so it attracts the same type of people, and then the multiplication of it, which clearly is working. 2 to 28. Like I think that I don't have 28 fingers, so I can't do that. But from 2 to 28, and you're having a steady, healthy growth. It looks like, and a lot of that probably comes down to 15 years of being just diligent, working.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
yeah. You have a strong foundation that you're building on for sure.
Yeah.
That people have come before you to even build.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
That foundation and those relationships and that brand was long before me, and we talked about it in the early days when we were growing. It's like, oh, we're kind of like a startup, like with $1 million budget. Like, when we first started pushing that $1 million in sales, we're like,
Right.
how many startups have $1 million budget that you're able to? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we saw ourselves as this young team that was trying to build. Hey, what could we build that's scalable? And it's like, it's because of what came before us.
That's good.
But, yeah.
That's good. So tell me more about, you've talked about relationship. You've talked about, your culture here. Tell me more about what is the culture here? What is that thing that it attracts the same type of people? Tell me about the culture at Cassel. Is that a fair?
Yeah.
Let me rephrase it. Let me rephrase it. Tell me about
trying to
relationship at Cassel.
Yeah. It is. There's always that tension of profitability versus the relationship.
Yeah.
And being able, which way you're going to lean, and I try to have a blend. Hey, there's times where it's like, hey, we got to set relationship aside. Right now, we got a job to do, and we got to be profitable, and we just got to grind it out. But then when there's moments when you can invest and you're able to maybe give up a little bit of profit to invest in a team. We do certain things like a book club, where it's like, hey, we're going to pay you to read books to better yourself.
So why that's a really, I just had a conversation with a guy this morning. I said leaders are readers, but why book club? Why do you want your people to read books?
Well, we want them to grow. I mean, in the end, if they're not going to grow, we're not going to grow.
So I don't want to say I'm leading the witness, but like I am leading you because I believe when you're reading books, it's improving and bettering yourself. Like, and would you say that's what you mean when you say you want people to grow?
Yeah.
You feel like that brings growth to people.
Growth, be healthy.
Yeah.
We asked that 2 of the books, at least 2 of the books are business oriented to help them with their job, but we're also open to other types of books that are going to better their relationships at home.
You got like graphic novels that you guys are reading, or I mean, it is a graphics business, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't found them yet.
You haven't found them yet.
But like your Pat Lencioni type books.
Okay.
just organizational health,
Okay.
that type of thing. But also we encourage people to, hey, the healthier they are outside of work, the healthier they're going to be inside of work, and the relationships that, with their spouse and their family and finances and, stuff like that. We try to support and help them. We can't do it for them, but we can encourage them and create a place and an environment that cultivates that.
So you have, you invest in training, you encourage people to read books, and you have book club.
Yep.
Like, so does the whole company sit there? Like how many people do the
Well,
book club?
we're probably around that 25% participation rate right
Okay.
now.
Well, that's better than our
Trying to
company.
grow
We don't
that.
read books at
We don't
all.
read- yeah. Because it is, we're asking them to do it outside, and they're busy. I
Yeah.
get that they have time, but it's a place that we'll give them $50 if they do the book, write a review, and sit down and have a meeting with one of their leadership team to make sure they actually did read
So
the
you
book.
will pay them $50
Yeah.
to read a book,
Yeah.
and you give them these 3 options. So, like you said, 2 of them have to be business books.
Well, we give 4 books a year. 4
So-
books a year there that we will reimburse them for 4 books a year.
So 4 books a year, and you give them $50 a book, or
Yeah.
$50 a what?
$50 a book. So
$50 a book?
So they can make an extra $200 by taking the time to read a book that we approve. So I mean, that's just a small
I don't think
sample
that's
of
that
what-
small. I mean, I know it's only $200, but it's like, the reason I say that is I've given employees books, and I was like, I want you to read this as part of your job. And I feel like I've just been called out on my own podcast. Thank you very much. Because now I have to like change company policy, and everybody's going to be able to make $200 extra a year if you read 4 books. Like,
Yeah.
dang, man, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, that's really cool. So you invest in them in that way, and then I know that I've seen this because I've been in some of the buildings that you guys have been in, like in different office spaces and whatnot, where a conference is going on or something's going on, and you guys are there with your team doing like a training,
Yeah.
and you shut down your office.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you understand some of the basics of business, but when you shut the doors of your office, you
Yeah.
can't make money.
Correct.
So why do you spend that money? And then you have to rent the space that you go meet in.
Yep.
Why are you investing in spending, and why are you actually closing down business to work on your team in that way?
Yeah. 1 day a year. So every quarter we meet for 2 hours, except the first quarter where we shut down a day. So half the day is spent on like the year review and the next 90 days and the stuff that we're working on. But then the other part of that day is we're very intentional in bringing in speakers and having our own little Cassel conference.
So you literally pay for speakers to come in to
Yeah.
speak to your team.
Speaker, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and the energy and the synergy that you get out of that, it's worth the lost revenue for the day, because I believe you're going to get that back. And just the communication and again, if they don't trust me, if they don't believe me when
Come on.
if they don't
Yeah.
believe me when I say it's people over profits,
Yeah.
I have to keep showing them that this is what, like I said, what do I need? I need relationship.
Yeah.
I need my relationship at work too. I mean, there are different types of relationship.
Yeah.
But I still value that and I desire that, and I want to do that well because I feed off of that.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it may be a little more natural for me to be able to say I'm willing to lose my revenue for the day and invest in speakers
Yeah.
and food and just that whole day to better them.
Yeah.
They get to learn from that, but what they also see is their leader putting
Yeah.
it in front of them and saying, "Hey, I care about you. I want to develop you. And this is, yeah. We did a fun. We even did a tour. We went and did the Kreider Farm tour during this past year for our all
That's
day.
pretty
We
cool.
did a tour, and that was neat because Kreider Farm is one of our long-standing clients to do. Actually, you had to go
Well,
through the
and
barns
Kreider
to
Farms
do
is
that.
not small.
No, it's amazing what they do. It was neat, but yeah, it's it's showing them people over profits. You know,
Mm.
it really, you get the profit back.
Yeah.
So that's the part. I mean, I even hate saying people over profits, and that's kind of a thing to say, but it's like, no, when you invest in your team and they grow and they get better, you grow and you get better,
Yeah.
and profits usually come with that.
Yeah.
It's hard not to.
Yeah.
So, it's it's a financial decision too, but
It is, but it's not all that noble, because you just told us that you're doing it because you believe that it actually makes you more profits.
I believe I'll get it back.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah,
it like
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
bad
Yeah,
thing. I'm
no,
just
no,
saying,
yeah.
you know, business is business. We
Yeah.
got to make money
Yeah.
in order to write checks. That's
Yep.
kind of a thing.
Yep.
And I think sometimes in business, as founders, owners, CEOs, leaders, managers, we get caught up in small thinking, I'll call it, where it's like, well, you know, one of the big places I see this is investing in telling your story and marketing what you do. And especially in the trade space, because I'm always talking with people and they're like, listen, we bid these jobs, we make this money. We don't need to tell our story. We don't need to invest in our brand. We don't need to invest in our people. And it's like, yeah, but if you do, that multiplication factor is so much greater. And I would even say it then makes it easier
Yeah.
to make more profit, because you have a unified team of people that is moving together in a direction. And when you get a team of people doing something, they can be unstoppable,
Yeah.
as opposed to one person can maybe do so much. You know, I recently was on a job where there was a team of electricians working to get power for this developer so that they would not lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they came up with a solution of how to rewire, you know, some gear based on supply chain issues, that it would meet code, and it wasn't the way that it was originally designed, but they could do this, they could turn it around, they could make this happen. And they worked into the night to do this so that the client would have power, because I'm not going to say the name, but one of the largest switchgear paddleboard manufacturers in the world couldn't get what the client needed in the time that they needed it. And 6 guys from a little old town here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, pulled together their brains and worked together to pull this off so that the client would have power the next day. And as a team, they were able to do it, but not one of them could do it by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They had to work together to be able to move that needle forward.
Yeah.
And then they were able to affect so many other people by that. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's why I think it's so important to invest in your brand, whether it's what you're wrapping the vehicle with, or whether it's how you're investing in your people, or whether it is what it is that you're trying to do and communicate and building culture. Listen, we don't talk about this stuff on the line because it's fun to talk about. We talk about it because we want to change an industry. We want to change the way that people view people in business and construction, in the trades and everything. And what you're talking about is what more of us need to be about. We need to be about investing in our people. If you don't take time to work on the business is not going to grow. And eventually, someone else is going to eat your lunch, and you're going to be left at the table with nothing. And so if you're out there and you're listening to what Gary is saying, the biggest thing that I'm hearing from what you're saying is that we need to be about continually improving ourselves, investing in our team, investing in our people. And if you're not doing that, someone else is going to do it. And listen, I'm doing it. I believe in it. I think it matters. And so I'm coming for your lunch. So are you. You're coming for their lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's fine if you don't do that, but clearly it's working from 2 to 28.
Yeah.
And did it take you 15 years to get to 28?
No. So we.
Whew, I'm just nervous. I was trying to make a point.
2012, No. Yeah. No. We added 4 or 5 a year for a while.
Come on.
So I would say we grew this past year, but we didn't grow by adding people.
Interesting.
So that was healthy and needed.
So you've done this, and it's continued to grow and build your brand
Yeah.
over the years because you've continued to do this. So you're not just saying it because it feels good or it sounds good. You've literally walked it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gary, I just have to say again, like back to the beginning of our podcast, I can't ask you to step up to the line because you're so far over it, man. Like, I mean, you are driving us to do what you're doing. My goodness, I have to give everybody $50 a book now. Like, I can't just ask them. Like, that's a big deal.
You don't have to if you don't know.
Oh, listen, they're listening.
Yeah.
They're listening
Yeah,
right
they're
now.
listening.
I 100% have to. There's no lying about that. Yeah.
No, honestly, I wish more of our team participated in it. I wish
Yeah.
they saw the value in taking the time outside of work. Isn't it? I mean, we're asking them.
Oh, so if you're listening to
give up
this
their time.
and you work at Cassel, step up to the line and get into the book club. Because if you don't, well, then we might be on here again and we'll just talk about you. What are the names? We can list them out. No, I'm just messing with you. The interesting thing, I will say, it's not just on CEOs and founders and the bosses to do this stuff. Like I am excited that you're doing this, but it is on. You know, I did a podcast with a gentleman from California, and he said, "You want something different, you got to do something different." You know, it's like, so it's also on those of you, like if you're an employee and you have a job and you want more, guess what? You need to step up and you need to do more. You can't just do the minimum and expect to get more. And so that's what you're talking about. You wish that more people participated, not because you want to pay them $50, but because you see the value in where they can go and where they can end up. And that's something that you've seen play out over the past, how many years have you been here overall?
Yeah, this is my 28th year.
Really?
Yeah.
28 years, 28 people? Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen this play out. That's good, man. Like, geez. Good for you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I talk a lot about, you know, lifting the view of the trades. And when I say trades, it's a broad term. I think that anything that takes a skill that you have to learn is a trade.
Yeah.
And so it's like what you guys do, it's a trade of a different sort. You're not electricians or plumbers, but it's like, you know, especially when we go back to the origins of Cassel, where you had to paint it on with a brush.
Right.
Like that's a trade if I ever heard of one. And this is something that I think that other people don't realize. Whether you're a plumber, an electrician, an excavator, whatever it is, a trade is also a form of art. Because it's not something that you can just watch a video or read a book. You have to do it to learn how to do it. Like you have to do that process. Over and over. And that's the only way that you do it. Meaning that someone doesn't wake up someday and be like, I'm going to paint that letter on that truck, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to... You can't do that. And I've watched your guys work and wrap vehicles. We have lots of hours of video of them working and wrapping vehicles. And it's like, it's work. But they do it in a way, and they operate in that art form. And it's clearly obvious that it's something that they have learned that trade, which makes it a skilled trade. So in that regard, it's like in the skilled trades, I believe that one of the biggest things and the biggest ways that we learn is through our mistakes.
Yeah.
Things that we've done that it's like, that was painful. Oh, that cost me money. I mean, I had a conversation with someone on our accounting team, and you know, I've been a part of our organization. You know, I'm a founder in founding an electrical company years ago, and I can remember when we went from, you know, when I did everything to where we are now, where I don't do a whole lot. Like I try to work, but sometimes they're like, you're getting in the way, you know. And so I recently, you know, a while back I really wish we edited things so that I didn't sound so stupid. A while ago, I was in a meeting, in a conversation, and someone had made a financial accounting error that cost us money, and the team member was like, feeling pretty bad about this. And luckily, because of some of the pain and the mistakes that I had made, I had grace for it because of the mistakes that I had seen.
Yeah.
And, you know, we now have all these different softwares and different programs that track money and different things, and they track all this stuff. And funny thing about tracking, if you don't track it, you can't see it, you don't know.
Yep.
And I was able to look at him, and I chuckled, and listen, I don't like to lose money. But I was able to look at him and I chuckled and I'm like, well, the cool part is we don't know if that's the biggest mistake that's ever happened, because when we were doing this volume of work and I was doing that, we didn't track anything. So we actually have no idea what my mistakes cost the company, which I'm very grateful for, by the way. But, I mean, to be totally honest, we don't. So we come to that point where I want to ask you the question.
Yeah.
What's a mistake that Gary has made that hurt, that you learned from, that you would share with someone else?
Yeah. No one incident jumps out at me but I think what I've learned that was painful, that has cost, is kind of talking about that training and, and being able to, like the mistakes I made while learning how to install and building process and procedure.
Yeah, I've
into
seen a
it
lot of that as we walked around here.
Is we've really been working hard to develop that, and how can we, typically to bring on an installer. So it's not like you can there's classes to learn install, but there's not like a school.
Right.
So they're coming on and they're learning, and it's 3/4 to a year.
Wow.
To where you have the confidence that you can give them a harder install, and they're going to achieve that in a timely manner. And so what we learned, and as we were bringing in new people, without the process and procedure and being able to document and get that training, that's the same type of training, and not just figure it out as you go, figure it out as you go. And that's how I learned.
Right.
That's how I taught the people after me. That model doesn't work. So the mistake that I learned from is like, all right, we need to document everything. We need to have a training procedure. Everybody follows through. So we're trying to speed that up. How can we get that 9 months to 6 months to where we're able to start generating and making money off of that installer? Because it's such a long, it just takes reps and everything's different. And it's complicated. You're bending vinyl around,
right.
Curves.
Well, and the quicker that training can happen, because another thing that people don't realize, I think, about training, especially in the skilled trades, whether you're a concreter, electrical worker, or you're working here at Cassel, any one of those things, learning costs money. And I'm not talking about what you pay to train someone. I'm talking about the fact of when you're learning, you're going to learn from your mistakes, and someone has to pay for those.
Yeah.
And when you get a new job and you're learning a trade, the company is literally paying and investing in you to learn that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that costs money. And the reality is, I had a conversation with a CEO of a rather large, HVAC, mechanical, plumbing, electrical company, and they said, when we have an employee who they're like, they get through all their training and everything, and they're like, all right, well, now this company over here will offer me X dollars more an hour. And in the grand scheme of things, it's usually not a lot more than what they're currently making, but they're totally missing out on, wow, I've been invested in, and I actually have cost the company this amount of money. And it's like, and there's nothing that you can do about that. I don't think that's a reason not to train people. Let me be really clear.
Right.
But from an employee standpoint, you need to recognize that that company, they know who you are. They've made that investment in you because they believe in you. And so that's your opportunity to be like, all right, I know I could leave and make $2 an hour more, $3 an hour, whatever it might be. And when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, but they're going to continue, if you're a hard worker, they're going to continue to invest and promote and raise up. They want you to grow with the company. But they need to recoup that investment as well that they've put into you. So that's something that I think that, so when you talk about that, I think for businesses as well as individuals, it's a two-way street,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So you would say to a company that is out there, don't make the mistake of not taking the time to invest in those procedures, those
Correct.
trainings, those.
Take the time. Yeah. Because in the moment, you want to just keep getting the job done, and you're going to learn it as you go, and you will, but you're slowing how fast they can how fast they can pick it up and train, and coming up with something as you bring each person in, for whatever that trade is, that they're doing the same thing. Probably the larger companies are already doing that, but if you're a smaller company that wants to grow and you want scalability, you want to bring on more technicians,
Right.
what type of training program do you have set in place, and expectations and all of that? So it took us too long to do that.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I've heard that a lot from different companies, that it's taken too long, but it's like, that's also, I think that it's, just like on a job, I often say it's a cyclical thing where it's like, you were here for 15 years and it was just you two. Well, now it's a cyclical thing. And I really believe in the power of multiplication. You invest in this employee, and then they invest in that employee, and you invest in, and it continues to multiply itself. And here you've been here 28 years and you have 28 people. I don't think that it works this way. You will have 28 years from now, it's not like you'll have another 28 people. It's cyclical now. And so the multiplication will be far greater than another 28 people, because now you have a team that's investing in that culture and building in people. And it's like, and I would argue, based on some of the things that you've shared with me, you're already seeing that happen. I mean, my goodness, we didn't even mention that they have more than one location.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wow, that's good stuff, man. I really appreciate you, and just taking the time to step up to the line with me here and have this conversation, but also your investment even in Blackline and your team partnering with us in what we're doing. You truly are real and authentic, and it's very obvious that relationship matters and it's important to you. So
Thanks for the opportunity.
yeah, I really thank you.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, take these nuggets that Gary has shared and implement them in your life, in your work, in your business. Step up to the line. Take the time to invest in relationship. Maybe it's the GC that you're working for. Maybe it's the client. Maybe it's the people that you are leading. And I don't say managing, I say leading, because if you're managing them, I think you might be missing where you want to take them. And so make that investment, build into your teams, build into your people, and you'll experience the power of multiplication, which is far greater than just 2 + 2 = 4. It goes far beyond that. I'm not going to continue to try to do math here on the podcast. It would be embarrassing for me and everyone else. So thank you, Gary.
Yep.
Greatly
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me. You bet.
All right. That's it.